Well, good morning to you. Happy Tuesday, man. Y'all know the vibes. You woke up this morning, then you already won. I hope you are doing something right now that your future self will thank you for. It's your boy, Earl of Pearl. This is another quick edition of the Ultimate 216 Show. Make sure you like, subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show flagship YouTube page. Also, ring the bell so you can stay in the know of this spinoff show, the Ultimate Cavs spinoff show, and the Ultimate Brown spinoff show. Let's get into it. So I'm pretty sure by now y'all have seen the rumors online circulating that, a media member has a source that is telling him directly that David Njoku has said publicly that the ship has sailed between him and the Cleveland Browns and that, quote unquote, he's gone. It's over with. And it got me to thinking about, can the Cleveland Browns really afford to move on from David Njoku? Is that the right decision to make? And I want to just take a few minutes to break that down and kind of dissect my thoughts and get your opinion as well on where you stand on this situation. Now, David has been here since 2017. He was one of 3 first-round picks made that year by then general manager Sashi Brown. He was in the class with Julius Peppers and, of course, the great Myles Garrett. He's been here for a very long time. He, too, suffered a 0-16 season. He's seen the highs. He's seen the lows. And for him, he's even wanted to be traded at one point. You fast forward where we are now, I believe that David Njoku has become one of those beloved fan favorites simply because he's always repping the 216 in the city of Cleveland very well. He reps the Cleveland Browns very well. He loves putting on the brown and orange, and he absolutely enjoys living in the city of Cleveland. He talks about all the time to where, like, this is his home. This is where he grew up at. And when you consider where the Cleveland Browns has been as an organization, constant turmoil, right? Constantly being inconsistent when it comes to winning, for a guy like that to still want to be a part of turning this thing around, that's something that as a fan, that kind of weighs on me, right? And the longer that a player plays for any of the 3 franchises here in the city of Cleveland, and we've seen that player have some success, I think it's harder for us as a fan base to want to move on from said player. But when you look at this situation, I am trying to, separate emotion from fact and come up with a logical idea or a logical picture to be painted of, would it be the right decision for the Cleveland Browns to move on from David Njoku? And I'm not really sure about that. If you look at the Cleveland Browns roster right now, right, you got Sal Cannella at tight end, Harold Fannin Jr. at tight end, Caden Prekerson at tight end, and Blake Whiteheart. That is the depth of the Cleveland Browns tight ends without David Njoku being a part of it. And then if you go look at the free agent list, just some notable names out here that I don't think will be a part of the equation, because if that was the case, you would just bring David back. Travis Kelce is probably going to retire. He's 36 years old. Dallas Goedert, he's 31 years old. I don't see Andrew Berry being interested in him. Austin Hooper, remember him? I don't see the Browns bringing him back. One name on this list that really stands out to me is one Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons, who arguably probably just had the best season of his NFL career. He's 25 years old. I'm pretty sure the Atlanta Falcons will be re-signing Kyle Pitts, but let's say he does hit the free agent market. That's the only name that's a free agent that would appeal to me to come in and pair up with Harold Fannin Jr. next season. And I think most Browns fans can get with that. But you look at the state of the current Browns roster, they're in no position to hand big money to a tight end that young that's coming off the best year of his career. Andrew Berry has said, yes, a lot of our resources will be invested on the offensive side of the ball. But, man, this team needs offensive linemen in the worst way. They need wide receivers in the worst way. And so if you're going to go spend money in free agency, you got to spend it on the offensive line. Maybe try to see if you can get a wide receiver in here via free agency. And you probably can use another playmaker in the secondary, to be quite honest. And so that automatically takes Kyle Pitts off the board. So you're looking at a situation right now that without David Njoku, you can argue that the Cleveland Browns don't have solid depth at the position at tight end, outside of Harold Fanning. You can also argue that the Cleveland Browns really don't have the money or not in the position to spend, big money on a tight end in free agency. And then you could look at the upcoming NFL draft and you look at some of these draft prospects that's coming out. Again, can the Cleveland Browns really afford to spend draft capital on a tight end when you have so many other glaring needs on the offensive side of the ball? You need guards, you need tackles. I still think you can use another backup running back. I think Dylan Sampson is one of those guys that, like a Swiss Army knife, kind of like he has a certain amount of plays built in for him. But I think you can use like just a respectable spell back for Quinshon Judkins moving forward. You need wide receivers. And so you have to look at other positions as well, like on the defensive side of the ball, like safety, for example, to where you're going to have guys on expiring contracts either at the end of this year or at the end of next year. And so you have to make sure that you invest your draft capital wisely. If the Browns were to go out here and draft another tight end, Joe Royer from Cincinnati is a guy that kind of stands out to me. If they were to do that, I can get with that. But the point I'm trying to make, this roster, it has issues. And the Browns need to correct those issues in other areas that's not tight end. So what would I do if I was Andrew Berry? I understand that the last 2 seasons for David Njoku has not went according to plan. They have not been very productive seasons. 2024, he plays 11 games. He has 505 receiving yards. He scores 5 touchdowns. This past season, he plays in 12 games. He gets 33 receptions, 293 yards, and 4 touchdowns. You look at his career numbers, he's had over 4,000 yards receiving and has scored 34 touchdowns as a member of the Cleveland Browns. His peak season was in 2023 when Joe Flacco, took over that last 5 games. David finished that season with 882 yards receiving, 6 touchdowns, and of course, he made the Pro Bowl. I would probably sign David Njoku to a 1-year deal for a few reasons. Somebody that's been a part of this team for that long and has invested in this franchise and in this city, I think my personal bias says, you know what? Give him a shot to get healthy and redeem himself, right? I think it gives you more flexibility going into this 2026 season and, quite frankly, the offseason as well. A 1-year deal for David Njoku will allow him to improve his own stock, and it gives you a veteran in a room with Harold Fanning going into his sophomore year. And we all know for any young player in the NFL, that sophomore year is a wild card. It can either be a sophomore slump or you can propel yourself to the next level by leaps and bounds and be a certified legit player going into year 3. And so the year 2 for Harold Fanning Jr. coming off an amazing rookie season is going to be a year to where we don't know exactly how it's going to go. We believe that he's going to continue to progress and his trajectory is going to continue to skyrocket. But wouldn't you love to have a veteran tight end in there with him that's familiar with him, that's familiar with the situation at hand, and that's willing to take on a different role? He's bigger, he being David Njoku, and he's not as fast as he used to be. But we've seen David Njoku kind of be used in the pass blocking and the run blocking game a little bit more than he was earlier on in his career. And I think David understands what type of time that this situation is on. He understands his age. He understands the injury history. And, he understands that Harold Fanning Jr. is the future. So a lot of this comes down to what the Browns want to do, but also what David might believe that he's able to get on the open market in free agency. By all accounts, from my understanding, David Njoku would prefer to remain a Cleveland Brown for the rest of his career. So there's an emotional tie for him to this city, which is going to weigh in on his decision. I know people might not believe this, but human nature comes into some of these decisions that's being made by players, executive, hell, even media members when we pick, our next job. And so it'd be interesting to see how this free agent market play out. But again, if I'm Andrew Berry and the Cleveland Browns, I am highly, highly considering signing up for number 85 just for one more year. Again, it gives me flexibility. It's one less thing that I have to worry about while I improve other parts of this roster. And it allows somebody who's been a part of this franchise through the highs and the lows to, get healthy, put some quality film out there, improve his own stock, and then move on to the next destination in his career. And if you hit right on this draft, if you hit right in free agency, you put yourself in a position to where now I got Harold Fanning, going into year 3, I can go get me another tight end in a draft. And I feel a little bit more secure as a Cleveland Browns fan as it retains to that position. But y'all let us know. You let me know in the chat how you feel about it. Do you think it's time for us to say goodbye to David Njoku, or are you up for Andrew Berry re-upping with David Njoku for at least one more season? Don't forget, flagship show of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show comes at you live at 11 a.m. We got a fire show planned for y'all. Hit that like button. Remember, like, subscribe, ring the bell so you can stay in and know. Y'all know the vibes anytime I'm in the building. Be great, spread love. Remember, being great come with a price. Spreading love, well, man, that thing right there, that thing is priceless. Till next time, I love y'all. Peace.